President Trump turning the tables on the Democrats over impeachment, demanding Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff be thrown out of office over their handling of the Ukraine whistleblower. The president also set to send a letter to Congress demanding Democrats hold a formal vote on the inquiry. That's all happening while a second whistleblower has come forward claiming to have firsthand knowledge of the allegations. Here's the president moments ago.
The impeachment inquiry is a scam. The conversation that I had with the Ukrainian president, Zelensky, was a very good it was a very cordial, very good conversation. The mistake they made, the opponents, the opposition, the Democrats, the radical left, deep state, whatever you want to call them, they came out with a whistleblower report before they saw the conversation. Had they waited one day, Nancy Pelosi wouldn't have made a fool out of herself. He defrauded the American people. He defrauded Congress. He defrauded himself and his family. He made a speech, the horrible speech. I said, what's going on here? I think he's having some kind of a breakdown.
That was the president just a few moments ago. He was speaking in the Roosevelt Room. Jesse, where are we today on impeachment? You keeping track of all the twists and turns?
I have, and it looks like they're trying to impeach the president in private. I mean, they're all doing this behind closed doors. They don't let Republicans subpoena. They don't let them cross-examine. They won't release the full transcripts, and they won't put it to a floor vote. And now you have the whistleblower who has been found out to have lied when he filled out the whistleblower complaint. There's a little box. Did you have any contact with Congress? He didn't check that. He lied about that, and we know Adam Schiff lied. His team had contact with the whistleblower. He lied to the American people about it, and he withheld that from the committee. What are they hiding? I mean, these are the same people that investigated the Trump campaign using secret warrants, using foreign powers, and we still don't know what the bottom of that was. So over the weekend, I did a little deep dive into the deep state and have some new information that I'd like to share. We now know that Joe Biden has lied twice about talking to his son about his business dealings. And the picture, look at the photograph with Devon Archer, who was the Burisma official. He visited the Obama White House at least twice. We know now. I'd like to know what he talked about there. Also, when the Obama-Biden people installed their hand-picked investigators over in Ukraine after the revolution, they pressured the Ukrainians to investigate Paul Manafort. And as a matter of fact, the DNC paid one of their contractors $70,000 to work with the Ukrainian embassy to get dirt on Manafort. And who did they link that deep state dirt to? Michael Isikoff. And that guy was the same guy who was the recipient of the Christopher Steele fake dossier, and that's how it got pushed into the bloodstream. Also, interestingly enough, the Wall Street Journal has a little rundown on the Clinton Foundation. It turns out the Ukrainians gave the most top dollar donations to the Clinton Foundation over the years, $10 million. You know, there's just a lot of stuff that we're looking at here, and that is why the Democrats are so nervous about this, because Trump is finally dialing in on the corruption and the collusion of the last administration. You know, on this chart, but it stuck out to me, Bosnia with $1 million. I mean, what was that for? A lot of money from Bosnia.
I want you to listen, Juan, if you would, to an MSNBC guest. She had this whole idea of how to impeach and then not, and then Pelosi becomes president or something like that. Watch.
You could impeach Pence first. The problem is that Donald Trump then has to name his replacement. But I think that maybe a deal could be struck where he was told, if you don't make a replacement, then Nancy Pelosi does become president. And so you are going to be impeached and convicted. You need to make this replacement so that the proper party remains in power.
Juan, do you think that's a serious consideration, or is that just filler for the cable program?
I think the latter is true. I think that's all fantasy. I mean, obviously, it is the case that the Speaker of the House is the third in line to be president, so that if you impeach both the president and vice president, then Nancy. But that's all, you know, silliness, I think.
Juan, her name is Winebanks. Do you think she hit one?
You think I knew you would pick up on that.
I'd like to have an account there.
Yeah, that's a Winebank. But, you know, the thing is that, in fact, Vice President Pence and his aides are now being subpoenaed. They're very much in this impeachment inquiry a target. And I think what's, you know, so another fantasy, Dana, is this President Trump saying somehow Schiff and Pelosi should be impeached. Now, Jill Wine-Banks is on TV filling time, but he's the president of the United States saying something that's just not positive. You can't impeach the speaker. You can't impeach a member of the House. That's just not the way our political system works. What's real is that there's a second whistleblower, apparently with some firsthand knowledge of what took place. What's real is that Trump is throwing his energy secretary, Rick Perry, under the bus, saying, oh, Rick Perry told me to make this call. Just unbelievable. What's real is there was no administration official on any of the Sunday shows apparently not willing to go out there.
Well, sometimes you give the Sunday shows a break, just having
I don't think
Sunday
this. I don't think it,
booking beforehand.
No, I think they're in the middle of trying to fight this. And if they had people capable, and the other thing that's very real is that you have people like Andy Card, George W. Bush's chief of staff, saying, "Yeah, let's have an inquiry." He doesn't know about impeachment, but let's have an inquiry. You have people like Colin Powell saying that Republicans need to get a grip. That, you know, you can't just let this stuff slide.
Can I play this for Dagan? There's somebody else who thinks Republicans need to get a grip or a spine. Here's Maxine Waters on Republican senators and what she thinks about them.
I am disgusted with those spineless members of the Senate who don't have the guts to stand up for this country. Many of them have defined themselves as patriotic. They're not patriotic. They are spineless, and they're not willing to step up.
Dagan, this is becoming a drumbeat from the left against the right.
Here's my wacky idea. This is why you don't put people from the administration on the Sunday talk shows, because these voices are louder and they sound, well, somewhere in space. It's just off the charts, crazy town. I want to point out, let me quote the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, because this is what it's starting to feel like. No, sentence first, verdict afterwards. Stuff and nonsense, said Alice. The idea of having the sentence first, that's where we are with these Democrats. Impeachment and the removal of a duly elected president by fiat, by decree, with the two hearings so far that the Democrats have had, were not just but in a skiff, so in basically a secured facility. Yeah. This is why the more you highlight this craziness and the more that you try to sound reasonable and sound, that's where the Republicans will win on.
Well, there was, Greg, a former Obama official, Mr. Brennan, who was out talking about all of this as well. Do we have Mr. Brennan for Greg to react to?
We would look at it as a very corrupt government that is under the sway right now of this powerful individual who has been able to just corrupt the institutions and the laws of that country.
What would you say about the stability of the democracy?
I think it's no longer, a democracy if an autocrat has it in his hands.
No longer a democracy.
No.
What the world's going on?
Is still interviewing John Brennan after 3 years of humiliating himself and being wrong on just about everything. Look, the media reminds me of that guy that tries to keep plates in the air at the carnival. He's doing this on the boardwalk, the beach boardwalk. They are breaking their backs on this story. They're like, and the reason is because for the past 8 years before Trump, they were like an abstinent priest. And now they're in the red light district under Trump, and they're humping the lamppost. They can't get enough. I am so sick of the phrase whistleblower because they really aren't whistleblowers. As my friend Walter said, Brennan's the whistleblower. They're the whistle answerers. They're all coming. They're coming to help support this kind of, I would call it like a legal slow-rolling coup. Because they aren't really whistleblowers because they're not going against establishment. The establishment's supporting them. They aren't taking really any risks. They're getting pats on the back. So this idea that somehow these are legitimate whistleblowers, no, it's just a lineup of people that they have to see which one works. And this story is waning and that it's actually getting kind of fun because now the media is no longer covering impeachment. They're covering Dems continue to apply pressure on impeachment. That's how far removed they are from this story now. It's like saying, I'm applying pressure, to keep a horse in my apartment. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
and they're already. I think
your wife's not going to go for that.
No, they're not. They're already got. They got buyer's remorse. They're still on that carousel playground where they keep the story going around and around. Do you ever notice they keep interviewing the same guests? They keep interviewing the same guests who keep saying the same thing. Keeps going around and around every week. They keep saying the same old crap. But the media is pushing it, and they're asking you to jump on. But they're the ones propelling the story.
Yeah, and the fact that we have a second whistleblower kind of reminds me of the second Kavanaugh accuser.
Yeah.
Remember when it didn't work the first time, then you just pile it on and on and on.
I think I'm going to be a whistleblower.
It's more ridiculous.
I'm going to be a whistleblower. Yeah,
I got into hiding.
Yeah, I'm going to go into hiding.
It's perfect for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay home.
Yes,
What's the difference?
You'll never
Stay
have
home.
to leave your apartment.
Order
And
nothing.
then you could have a horse there. Maybe that would work.
Or one of those tiny little ponies.
Well, that would be the horse for you.
Well,
That would be a horse to
you know
you.
where you should go?
Okay.
The wine bank.
Yeah.
Yay!
Bringing it
full
around.
circle.